What time do you wake up?
Early for me, like 7:45. Early at the minute, anyway. I've been waking up at like 9 every day, or like half 8, 9ish. So
That's fair. We had a lay in today, and we laid in genuinely in bed until 9. I can't remember the last time we did that. Must have been months.
well, there you go. Yeah.
Well, apart from being on furlough, I did sleep in then, but yeah, both of us. Been quite a long time.
Hmm.
So, Jay, we finally feel, or you finally feel, I should say, where we're at a place where finally felt that we were at a place where we could talk about Avengers, or you could talk about Avengers. I've started looking up some other reviews, thoughts, opinions, gameplay stuff to chime in a little bit. But essentially, you feel like we're in a good enough place to begin discussing the game as a special.
Mm.
It's a difficult conversation because it is going to be updated continuously for the next foreseeable future, 1, 2 years.
Well, I don't really know where to begin
Mm-hmm.
because today or yesterday there was a massive update, one that was spoken about for at least a week or two, that they said was going to fix a load of issues, and it seems like they've fixed a load of issues. Like, I'm not joking. There was they said 1,000 issues they fixed,
But how many of
well
those
over
issues
a
were really
thousand.
impacting
Well,
you, I
they
guess?
listed they listed the most impactful. The most impactful there was probably like 80 most impact, like ones that were like really game breaking or at least close to.
And how long have you checked out the game with the update?
They do it. They do like a weekly update that basically tells you what they've got planned
No,
for the
no, I mean,
next.
what I meant, sorry, was how long have you played it today with the new
Not
update?
very long. Definitely was a difference though. A pretty
Really?
good one. A pretty good one. Yeah, I actually came across a bug that I'd never come across before. So other than that, it was probably all right. Because my biggest issue was the AI balancing
Okay.
with projectiles, which they seem to have fixed at least somewhat. Maybe not to the extent I wanted them to, but it's definitely enough to be able to be manageable for now. Maybe we'll see. We'll see.
So this leads to the point I was making, which is that it's difficult to have a conversation of summary against a game in 2020. So we're
Yeah,
going to talk about it a few weeks after launch, probably revisit it in the show, maybe in another special in some time later in the future.
in some
But for
capacity.
now,
Yeah.
in some capacity, but for now, what I will use the analogy of, Jay, is like a rubber band where it can stretch to a different shape, but there's only so much surely you can do with a game via updates. I would argue, in
Yes.
terms of the fundamentals, the foundation of the game.
Well,
So go on.
yeah, yeah. I mean, they've but by that, do you mean like how the game plays in terms of its content, or do you mean like whether or not the game works or not?
Both.
Okay, you do mean both. Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Sure, sure, sure.
So anyway,
Yeah,
usually, Jay, we like to do this where I just keep asking you questions.
yeah,
So, in the spirit of that, let's begin. I think we have covered Avengers briefly on the show, but let's go straight into spoilers. So, spoilers if you care, because we discussed this quickly on the phone because I wanted to check
yeah.
out this
Because you were
video.
driving, and I wasn't sure how fast you were going to get to your location, so I was like, just get this out as fast as I can. And it actually worked out pretty much on time. But the second I finished, you pretty much stopped driving, so that was all right.
That's true. That's true. It was hands free for all you
Obviously,
road traffic officers. So yeah, so let's just
obviously.
go over the story because I haven't actually covered it with you really on the show before.
It's
So
bloody weird. That's what it
take
is.
us through it, mate. Take us through it because I can't wait for you to summarize it again. Yeah, go
So
on.
the Avengers have been around. I think someone actually calculated it. I think they'd said they'd been around for at least 12 years at this point. So let's say the year is 2020, but they've been around since 2008. So it's like roughly like the same as the MCU, I guess, right? So at this point, Kamala Khan is I want to say 12-year-old girl, and she writes out, she basically draws like her own fan comics for the Avengers, and she enters a competition to meet the Avengers, or to go to the craft they all go on for A Day, like the anniversary or whatever of the Avengers. And so she
The
does that.
the helicarrier is that?
Helicarrier, there you go, yeah. So she does that, and there's a bunch of other kids who also, were part of this competition, and they all got to go. And so they meet him, and then all of a sudden, this explosion happens on the bridge, and then they get distracted. They all bugger off, and then they look back and they think, "Oh crap, the helicarrier is about to blow up." So they go back and try and sort that out. Looks like Captain America died. He didn't actually. Turns out he was in space in this lab that happened to be in space, but that's like later on in the story.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's 5 years later. Kamala Khan is now a teenager, and she has developed powers from the Terrigen crystal and the mist that has like come out of it. That's part of the actual comic story. And there's now like a rebellion against AIM, who are the guys who basically mucked up everything with the Terrigen crystal. And they've gone rogue, and they're like taking over the government and this city, and they're trying to kill off all the Inhumans, which is the name of the New Mutants, I guess, what you want to call them, from the Terrigen.
Does that tie directly into that new movie they're doing as well?
No, it doesn't. No, they're actually just called Inhumans, but I'm just calling them, new superheroes or whatever you want to call
them. Okay.
During this process, MODOK's head seems to get bigger and bigger, which I spoke to you about, because obviously MODOK started out as a normal scientist.
Yeah, you were like, yeah, no, his head just continuously gets
bigger. It
just
gets bigger
and I was
and bigger.
like, what? Yeah.
So yeah, you basically have to do a bunch of missions while finding the rest of the Avengers, because they've all been scattered, because Bruce Banner, while in court, testified against the Avengers because he thought they were a bad idea because of how much damage they've done over the last however many years. Kamala then goes looking for them all. You gather them all up. You find Cap, and then you defeat MODOK at the end. Turns out MODOK was hiding a Kree giant under the sea, and that's what was pulling the Terrigen crystal into the bay. And then he gets inside of its head and controls it, and then Kamala gets really big and beats it, and that's the end of the game. And I've left a lot out in the middle just because it's like basically just repeating the same mission over and over again, essentially.
Yeah, it sounded like from our discussion before, it's basically you just find each Avenger, recruit them, they're having a little mobe about
assemble the Avengers, as it were. Yeah, get them all back together, find them, find a reason why, and then then defeat the baddie at the end, and then Kamala becomes part of the Avengers.
So the interweb made it out like this story was one of the best, or the story was one of the best elements of this game.
No, the only reason they said that is because they want to seem woke about Kamala being a Muslim character.
Jay said it.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious, isn't it? It's, woke media nowadays.
Right.
Makes sense. I mean, the story wasn't great. I mean, it wasn't awful. The writing was extremely cheesy, as you would do with, anything like this. I think they were trying to do that, like, MCU comedy, but it didn't really come out. It was just very awkward and weird. And then they tried to have like this weird sort of like father-daughter kind of thing with Bruce Banner and Kamala, but that didn't really go anywhere. They just sort of became like best buds.
Right.
Yeah, it was just, I don't know, it didn't feel like, just felt very like disingenuous and not really connected. It kind of felt like you were thrown in the deep end with a story that they hadn't, because usually a story starts somewhere and then you develop and it goes somewhere, but this, you can't, like, you're already halfway or like 12 years into the story, so it's almost like coming to the MCU at like Avengers Endgame.
Sure.
Rather than starting with Iron Man, you're just sort of like thrown in and hoping that you understand everything already, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because they do that a lot in some stories, but in this way they just didn't really pull it off very well. I don't know if you could have improved too much on the story. I mean, the story was basically Kamala, the game. Like, the whole thing was you are her, and you just assemble the Avengers. I think if they were trying to go for a bigger game, they would have just made it more about the Avengers rather than just one character. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but it's not a good thing. And I probably would have enjoyed it better if they hadn't done that.
After playing through it, Jay, would you say there's any evidence to suggest that this game was a different type of game before an intervention of some sort?
What do you mean? So you mean like if it was designed initially to be one sort of game, but then someone came along, a big fat cat came along and went, make it like this so we can make more money?
Yeah, pretty much. Especially linked with the story.
It's hard to say. I would have said that if it wasn't for Marvel's recent sort of like Me Too or the MCU as they're calling it now.
Oh wow, that's a
Um,
fantastic name.
yeah, it's been like that for a while. Basically, like comics industry basically
MCU.
the comics
Uh,
industry on both sides, but more so on the Marvel side, took a bit of a dip. So they thought they'd hire. Well, actually, it was doing fine, and then they started to hire all these woke artists and writers, and that basically like completely ruined the industry. And so they've now obviously that's leaking into the movies with Joss Whedon. I think was it Joss Whedon? No, Kevin Feige was the one who did it with Captain Marvel. So yeah, it's leaked into the movies, and now it's leaked into the game industry as well.
okay.
So I think that might, I mean, that might have had some influence. Whether or not about the money side of it, if they wanted to make more money, they wouldn't have gone the woke route. Let's just say that. It definitely does look a little bit like the microtransactions, I guess, where like maybe, I mean, they could have initially been part of it, but they would have had to have made money somehow along the way, the same as Destiny. I think they've definitely followed the Destiny um, path and the Fortnite style path, which it's just a trend and it happens to work. So why wouldn't you do it if you wanted to make money?
What's your impressions on the battle pass a few weeks on?
Yeah, so there technically isn't one at the minute because you haven't had to pay for one yet.
Oh right,
They're
it comes out
technically
with the
free
first
for now, but
DLC or
when the Kate Bishop
that's right. Yeah.
and
Hawkeye.
Hawkeye DLC
Yeah.
comes out, you will have to pay for theirs. So yeah, it's fine. I mean, they actually did a thing with this latest update where they gave free points towards the battle pass for every character. They gave you a free 20 points towards the actual battle pass, so you got like 3 or 4 rewards for free, essentially, which was pretty
Do you
cool.
think is that them acknowledging the
Yeah,
issues
that
with
was
the
basically
game?
saying, look, we screwed up. We want to make your experience a little bit easier for every character, and maybe you get a bit more enjoyment out of these rewards, kind of thing. They do
And
that a
what
lot on games though, when they have like maintenance for like 2 minutes too long, in quotes. They'll like reward you with like in-game gems or whatever, but they've done like a similar thing just with points instead.
I remember when Unity released and they offered a free game slash the DLC for free if you
Yeah.
owned it before that. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so give us your background on each character and what level they're at now, Jay.
Okay.
Because you
Well, so
finished
me
playing it.
personally,
Yeah, because you finished playing it for the time being, right? Is that correct?
I'm technically back into it, but only because I need to test what this latest update has done,
Okay.
really. But I'm not playing it, as much as I did when I first played it. Okay, so I've gotten 5 characters out of the 6 to level 50,
Wow.
which is
Okay.
everyone but Kamala. I haven't touched
And
Kamala, not really, because she's not very good.
okay.
Black
So
Widow
she's
is
your least
maybe
enjoyable.
yeah, Black Widow is my second to least most or least enjoyable. She's at like power level 96 out of 150. Um, Still level 50 though. And then next is probably Hulk, who's at I think power like 139 out of 150. Captain America's 133, Iron Man's 140, and Thor is 139
So Iron
or
Man's higher than
140.
Thor.
No, I think Iron Man and Thor are the same actually.
And isn't the process between 140 and 150 very difficult?
The process between
Or
130 and 150 is very difficult.
oh,
So
okay.
130 is the max you can get from any drop. So as soon
Yeah.
as you've hit 130 on a drop, that's it. You can't go any higher than that in terms of like ones that drop from enemies. The only way to level up is to then boost them 10 times with resources that you collect during playing. Some of those resources are a lot more or a lot harder to collate than others.
Okay.
Like the one that's hardest to get, I have 800 or so of, and the one that is the easiest to get, I have about 5,000 of.
Okay.
So, and that's only because I've literally not spent any, and I've just been grinding them the entire time.
How do you get these resources? Are they similar to Destiny
Yeah, so you
resources?
finish to get these special resources to upgrade your 130 to 140 armor and stuff, gear. You have to defeat elite enemies on a certain map, or you do a hard version of a certain mission. And you're given anywhere from 1 to 5 in that instance. And then the only way to get 5 or more is to open up special chests called DNA chests, and the only way to open those is to get DNA keys, which is from the I want to say daily boss missions, but the boss missions are bugged, and they're still bugged, which means I haven't been able to get a DNA key for the last week and a half.
That's pretty bad.
And they said they were going to fix it in this patch, and it's not fixed for me, so I don't know what to do.
That's pretty bad.
I think, yeah, and there's still actually a lot of people who, after this patch, have lost out on like 70 plus hours of grinding because their game save is just not working.
That's not good.
There's been a few people who were like max level with all their characters and then played with one of their friends who was like a really low level, and then all of a sudden all of their stuff was reverted back to like level 1. So they had to start all over again. Some people managed to fix it with fixing the game saves, but other people they haven't seemed to be able to fix it yet. So I don't know how many people haven't been able to fix it, but I reckon there's probably more people who have it fixed than not, but I don't know what the difference is because it's hard to tell, obviously.
Jay, it seems like I spoke to you about this on the phone. Yeah. If you take out the Avengers of this game, it doesn't sound like a great experience. It doesn't even necessarily sound like a good experience. I know that you're...
I think it is a good one, but it just depends on how you look at it. There's a silver lining, but it's,
Because I feel like your grinding mentality suits this game, which is definitely fine. But I hate grinding.
You do.
And what I'm trying to say is that I definitely don't want to play this game.
Yeah.
And I think that if we got to the end and you said, yeah, I'd give it like a 6, for me, I'd be like, I feel like you're lying to yourself right now a little bit, in the sense that 2 years on, all right, fair enough, there'll probably be loads of issues fixed and loads of DLC, but I'm probably thinking, but the core experience
is still
as
low,
an Avengers Marvel Games game compared to Spider-Man is not good.
I think everyone gave it a 6, right? This game is 6.
I mean, the IGN did, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, so I reckon the number hasn't shifted at all, even after this big update. Even after all the bug fixes and the changes with the AI, I still think they haven't done enough to make the core game quite as good as what you would imagine it to be. Like, I feel like there's definitely the potential. They did say that they fixed some of the power levels with the loot, but I haven't tested that out properly yet. It seems like there could be an issue there, but I don't know. So
if these issues are fixed, would you say
they should be? Technically, on paper, they're fixed. On paper.
If that is the case,
yeah.
Do you think that raises it to a 7 for you?
It's a good question. I don't know. It maybe a 6.8, 6.8, or 6.7.
Okay.
I think it'd only ever be a 7. This is the thing. This game, like we spoke about this before, about how this game, I reckon, can only get better now from fixing any level of core gameplay or just adding new characters that are fun to play. Because me and you had this conversation about if this game wasn't an Avengers game, it would have died already. 100%. As soon as they start adding new characters, it'll pick back up. I imagine. I hope. Doctor Strange for the win. Let's go.
And the core gameplay loop, you think, is good enough?
I think if you have a consistent friend player group to play with, it probably can feel a lot more fun. But if you're solo, it's very annoying and very, I don't know, very grindy and kind of boring, honestly, which is where I'm at right now. They did say they fixed the matchmaking, but I haven't really tested that properly yet because it used to take 10 minutes to find anybody.
So let's say that you are being 100% honest with yourself, and it is a 6 out of 10 even for you, say, even with incorporating the Avengers aspect of the game. My question to you then is, you've invested money, you've invested a lot of time.
Well over 100 hours, yeah.
Yeah, but ultimately, I'm surprised you're not disappointed.
I think on some level I am. But again, I think I'd be more disappointed if it wasn't an Avengers game, to an extent. I mean, I can definitely compare this feeling to a previous feeling with what I had with Anthem. 100%, I'm getting exactly the same feeling, where I'm kind of just like, I've hit a wall, and I'm like, well, how do I improve? Like, how do I get better loot? Do I just keep grinding on the difficulty that I can do by myself? Because the only way I can ever do these higher difficulties is if I'm with a group who's good enough. But for me to be able to find that is quite difficult to do. If that makes sense. And I feel like that was there was very similar feelings with that in Anthem, and a little bit with Destiny as well. Like back in the day when it first came out, you kind of had to play with people who were already so much higher than you to be able to even improve slightly. So I don't know. I feel like I definitely could get to 150. I would just have to spend all my resources on gear that I don't want to spend the resources on. Does that make sense? Like I'm kind of saving my resources for the perfect roll of gear. But until I get that, then I'm not happy. The thing is, though, people like. I think the main idea with this grinding process is that that's basically how you're supposed to feel. You're supposed to want to keep grinding to get this perfect roll. But I'm just not sure what will happen once I do get the perfect roll. What happens when I hit max level 50 or 150? Do I then stop because I've done? I think they've designed the game to keep you playing because as soon as you hit your goal, then you're probably going to stop playing anyway. So they'd rather you be annoyed and keep playing than happy and not playing. Does that make sense? Because if you're happy and not playing, you're not paying for stuff. But if you're unhappy and still playing, you're more likely to buy stuff in game. They just want to keep you on the game to be able to buy, for you to spend money in some way. Which is, it's unfair a little bit, but that's kind of how the cookie crumbles. Honestly, it's unfortunate, but that's the world we live in. The thing is that model of game design has been around since WoW days. Similar thing on WoW. People still play WoW for forever, all day, and they still have a similar process and having to buy in-game stuff. So it makes sense. It makes sense.
Yeah, I think it's a shame because
yes.
Crystal Dynamics is a great studio, and the Avengers is a great franchise, and they've had 5 years to work on this game ultimately, and not only is it the core isn't there for me, there's loads of issues. I don't know whether it's too ambitious. I don't know whether there was too many main characters to try and put in there. But ultimately, I
feel like a good analogy for this might be that they've tripped at the first hurdle. But they've still got a chance to get back up and keep going. They're not going to finish first, but they're still going to finish.
Sure.
I think that's like the goal right now is just to finish. Not be DNF. They've definitely tripped. I think I did have a bit of a thought earlier that if they had released this game after this patch, if this was day one patch, the game would have definitely potentially been looked at slightly differently.
Sure.
I think maybe I still don't know if people would have rated it slightly higher or not if they'd released it with this patch rather than the actual patch that first came out. I still don't know if they would have given it a 7. They definitely wouldn't have given it an 8, but there's a chance they would have given it at least one more. Because I think ultimately part of the 6 scoring was because of how buggy it was. I think the other massive part of it was just because it was just a bit of a grind fest, really. But I still can't make my mind up whether it's a good thing or not. Whether it's a good thing for it to be a grindy game.
I mean, I don't like grind, but
hard to say. I think I've definitely gotten a little bit fed up with it at the minute.
I'll tell you what I do like.
I feel okay, but I don't know.
I like the alternate paths, a bit like Destiny, where you can grind. You do have to grind at some point in Destiny, but it's just a case of there's so many other things you can do before doing that, if that makes sense.
It's similar in Marvel Avengers. You don't actually have to do any of what I'm talking about.
Right.
You can still be the kind of casual gamer that will get to 130 and be happy where you are. It's just that you won't be able to do some of the later on content because there is some content that requires you to be a certain level. So one thing they did do with this latest patch is mega hives, which is essentially like raids, but they only last a week. They're like a timed raid.
Bit weird.
I actually attempted it and died within the first 30 seconds, so I kind of got a bit fed up. I was like, this is not
by
good.
yourself.
Yeah, so the way they've designed it is that you can't do these raids multiplayer. You have to do them single player.
Oh.
So you
still
basically to be able to do well, you have to have leveled up all of your characters to max level, basically.
Right. I mean, that
And you,
doesn't sound very fun at all.
it's not. So I can do it. I can definitely do it. I'd have to really concentrate when I do it, basically. I have to
Right.
like skip past every enemy that I see and just fight as little as I can, because as soon as I start fighting, I'm just going to die.
And what's the multiplayer matchmaking like at the moment?
I did test it maybe like for like 30 seconds just to see if it went from 10 minutes to 30 seconds. Didn't seem to be the case. I reckon it's probably more like 10 to 5 minutes rather than 10 to 30 seconds. I'd much rather it be within under a minute, but it's probably not even close to that. I don't know.
Okay.
I'll have to get back to you on that one.
And how many endgame missions have you completed at this point? Percentage, do you think?
I mean, technically I've done them all,
You have done them all through once.
but they're repeatable.
Yeah. But you've done every mission in the game essentially.
Yeah, I've done 91% of the campaign, but I don't quite know what the last 9% is. you can't
Really?
you can't really tell. I don't know why you can't tell, but it's just difficult to tell.
Right.
So yeah, the multiplayer missions, I mean, certain missions give you certain rewards, so you just basically do the same one over and over again, depending on which reward you want. So if you want a certain type of drop, you'll do this mission 30 times to really get the right one, or you do the other mission that requires this reward instead. So I've literally played the same mission or the same two missions, probably like 250 times each, and I'm still not where I need to be
Okay.
necessarily. I've definitely got the right drops on some of the stuff, just not all of my armor. Like I've probably on my Thor, I've got everything apart from one bit, so I'm one short, and that's I've probably spent 40 hours with Thor, 40 hours with Iron Man, and then maybe like 10 with every other character, maybe, or like 20 with some others, something like that.
And you
But
said the
yeah,
performers of each character do bring a lot to the game,
not
or the
I mean
performance of each character.
not massively. I mean uh not the voice acting, not really.
Okay. I thought you said they do well.
I wouldn't say they enhance the characters. They just sort of make them seem like characters. If that makes sense.
I didn't know if you said that they do well with the script they have, basically.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's basically like getting like a famous actor to be in a bad film. Essentially,
Sure.
like they're only going to do as well as they can do with what they've got. They're still going to give you as good of a performance as they can. It's just within the surroundings and the backdrop of something that's not that great in comparison.
And what's MODOK like as a villain?
Yeah, he's pretty good. He's not what I imagine he'd be from previous iterations. What I've seen, he's definitely some sort of like new version of him. But he's fine. Yeah, I mean the boss battles are fun. Definitely very limited at the minute though with what there is. There's definitely like from this latest update, you can tell they've filled the maps up as well. So one of the biggest complaints is that the maps were too desolate. There wasn't enough going on. So they've actually like filled in things in the map now. So there's like new buildings everywhere that weren't there before.
Oh, right. So when you say maps, you have to explain this to me. So when you
Okay.
go into every mission, is that like a mini hub world, every single mission? Or.
Certain missions, yeah. So certain missions have like a mini sort of like open world area where you
Yeah.
can go and find chests, defeat elite enemies to be able to get certain resources. And then there'll also be, um, I guess, like secrets. There's like hidden things you can find that lead to certain things, but they're not really that important, not necessarily. And yeah, you don't have to complete all these things to be able to finish the objective of the mission. You can just go straight to the mission if you want to, which is what I've been primarily doing. If you're lucky, on the way to the mission objective, you'll find multiple chests and enemies to kill, which sometimes happens, sometimes doesn't. So you just find the one that have that, so you can just grind the chests as well. Because if you're grinding chests, you're constantly getting resources, so it's very good to do that. Very efficient.
And they've been filling in the world in each
Yeah, so
mission, have they?
yeah, each of those missions that have one of those open world areas, they've sort of filled them in a bit. They were quite desolate before. There wasn't really.
Okay.
It was very plain. It wasn't very. It's very barren, I guess is a good word for it.
And what do you think these DLCs are going to look like? I know they're characters, but do you think they'll bring with them unique missions, unique worlds?
Yeah,
How
new
big will these
missions definitely.
how big will
Um,
these DLCs? Because there's quite a lot of characters. I can't imagine each character's going
yeah,
to have two
they're not
hours of
going to be big.
content. No, no.
I mean that you might have hit it right on the nose there. It might be about like 4 missions per, I'd say, I mean, it's difficult to say. From what I've seen of the latest trailer for the latest DLC character, it looks like there's going to be like a whole new, what they're calling, I guess, like initiative, which is like there's like a whole like side section where you can actually go to that hub of the DLC. Like you kind of have to like click on the DLC to be able to access that stuff. I don't know if that makes sense. It's a better way to describe it. It looks like there is a favourable amount of content, but whether or not it'll last very long, I don't know. I might have to get back to you on that one because there's potential. I'll say that. From what I've seen, it looks like there could be a lot, but it also looks like there could be not a lot. So we'll see.
Like me and you with Borderlands 3,
Yeah.
will you genuinely see yourself keeping this game installed,
Oh
installing it
yeah,
on Xbox
100%.
Series X, and continuing to play this all the way through?
Oh yeah, no, I'm not getting rid of it anytime soon. Definitely not.
Okay.
I'm gonna so they have daily assignments, which are essentially like depending on what faction you get the assignments from, it gives you a particular type of resource that you need to be able to upgrade your exotic artifact. And you kind of
Yeah.
need to do that daily to be able to have a good chance of being able to level up everyone. So I need to at least do those assignments every day, and
Yeah.
then so it's basically like what WoW's equivalent to like a daily. So you do your dailies and then you come off essentially, and that's pretty much where I'm at. I'm at my daily stage.
Okay.
I'm not really doing much else other than that. If I've done my dailies and I still feel like I want to do a bit more grinding, then I'll do that. But yeah, no other real need to be on it. Not really.
Okay.
I've gotten to a point where a lot of casual gamers wouldn't be to. Like I've been looking at the forums and there's still people who are on like level 80, like power level, and are like struggling to get to 90. And I'm like, I can get from 80 to 90 in like 2 hours. But obviously these people are probably people who have probably go to work all day and probably aren't as good of
Kids.
not necessarily as good of a gamer as I am, but as maybe as
Efficient.
efficient or experienced of a gamer as we potentially are.
So you've been participating a lot in the forums, the patch notes, the updates. So what is the general vibe you're getting from gamers on both ends of the spectrum in terms of not liking it, loving it? What's your vibe that you're getting from
The people
people?
who like it are the woke audience, and the people who don't like it are the non-woke audience.
That's what you're getting.
Yeah, every bit of good feedback I've seen has been from people who are either happy about the fact that it's a woke game, or they're just happy about the fact that you can play as a certain character. Like maybe they're like a Captain America fan, so they're like, "Oh, I'm just happy that Captain America's in it. So I don't really care about anything else. I don't care if the game's broken. Just let me play as this character. It doesn't really matter." That kind of audience member. All the bad comments come from people who are the same as that audience member, but are not happy enough that the game is broken in any sort of way. So that's basically where I'm at. Like I'm happy that it's an Avengers game, happy that certain characters are in it, but I'm disappointed to a degree that it isn't quite what I had imagined in my head.
You mentioned skill trees before.
Yeah,
Have you got to the point now where the skill trees are developed enough because you've leveled up all the characters where
yeah.
the
So
moment-to-moment gameplay is actually quite exciting now?
level 50 is kind of like you kind of have to get to max level to be able to enjoy the character at any point.
Right.
Like from level 1 to 15 was a massive slug in terms of like actually enjoying the character. 15 to 30 is kind of slightly better, and then 30 to 50 is like much better.
Okay.
But even when you're at level 50 and your gear isn't good enough, it still feels like a bit of a bummer, really. Bit of a downer, because you just don't feel strong enough. Like, I'm at the minute, I'm at a point with Iron Man and Thor where I can absolutely decimate missions, but then other times I'll just die within like 2 seconds. But they should have fixed a lot of that issue. A lot of those issues where I kept dying, but it didn't seem to be that fixed because I tried playing on this mega hive and I died so quickly it was annoying. So I don't
So
know.
it's
There's definitely some sort of balance there somewhere that isn't quite right. But
so
I
it's
don't know.
like that level 1 to 10 in any sort of RPG where like it feels good, but you're very weak and you feel weak, but it
No, it
just
didn't
seems
feel
like
good. Just felt
okay.
weak and annoying.
Oh,
It
okay,
was. It didn't.
fine,
It didn't really feel good. Like the character legitimately doesn't feel like they can do anything other than just punch a bit
right,
or like
right.
jump around a bit.
At that point, it feels basically like Marvel Ultimate Alliance, I
Yeah. So
assume.
the game is basically Marvel Ultimate Alliance until you get to maybe level 50. Till you
And
get to
then
max level.
And then what changes that is the abilities and combos, or
Yeah, so there's certain skills that have three options, so you can change the options depending on how you want it to play. Either play depending on your play style, or maybe your set of armor that you have on. So if you want to play more of a defensive one, you'd change your armor to be more defensive, and then you'd also change your skills to be able to make it so you are maybe more resistant to certain things, or maybe a skill of yours creates a barrier around you rather than just like powers you up, stuff like that.
how long is the game from removing the grind aspect? So you said the main story is what, like 8 to 10 hours or something?
I mean, I did it pretty quick. If you were a casual gamer, it'd probably take you 15 to probably like 14 to 16.
And then all the end game stuff without the grinding, would you say? Oh, I guess the grinding's kind of
Oh, I
included
mean,
if
technically
you.
that would probably take you probably close to 20 hours.
Okay.
Um,
So not that long.
I mean, 20 hours if you weren't that casual, if you were fairly casual, but if you're not that casual, maybe like 14 to 16. Like if you're more experienced, it'll still take you quite a while. Because there's like an end game mission that requires you do about 50 plus steps to like finish. And then
Okay.
once you finish that, you've then got to do a second end game mission, which takes even like
Ugh.
not as long, but it still takes quite a long time to do. But if you're a good player, you can get through those steps so quickly that it doesn't even feel like you're doing it. Like you
Okay.
can basically just play the missions and you'll get them all done without even having to think about it.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't take that long, but it's like a bit of a slug to get there, which is
Yeah.
fine. I mean, I'd rather it be like that than it just happened so quickly it was annoying.
Yeah, fair
You do
enough.
want some level of pushback because you want to feel like it's a challenge to a degree, but you know.
And there's no PvP, there's no strike like activities, there's no official raids,
Yeah, I
multiplayer
guess
raids.
technically there are strikes and raids. You know,
Oh, okay.
with the hives, you can do normal hives multiplayer. I mean, you can do most missions multiplayer. It's just I haven't been able to get anyone in a lobby for it to be fun. So
Right,
doing
okay.
it by yourself can be a bit, you know, flavorless. I guess is a good way to say it. Like it's almost like
Mm.
eating just like a bland bit of food. But as soon as you've got friends playing with you, you just start to taste everything. Everything starts to taste, you know, with a bit more seasoning, kind of.
Are you playing this on Xbox?
No, I'm playing it on PlayStation.
What's the trophy list like?
See, that was the other thing, right? So there was actually a few bugs with trophies. Some trophies
Oh
weren't
no.
popping, and I had one that wasn't popped, but luckily it popped as soon as I came back on. So I was like, sweet.
Oh, you got lucky there.
No, the patch said it was supposed to pop after this.
That's
Like
good.
anyone who had bugged trophies, that it would pop for you. So
Mate, funny story. I had a Gears 4 glitched achievement and it popped a year later.
yeah, I've had that with a few games. I can't remember exactly what it was. It was probably like Fallout or something.
Crazy.
Yeah, like
Crazy.
I think it might have even been like 2 or 3 years later, just because I didn't play it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Like
Well,
something
the weird
ridiculous
thing
like
was, Jay,
that.
I didn't even go on the game. It just
Oh, I
popped.
see. It just popped by itself. Yeah, I've had that too.
Yeah,
Yeah, maybe like a
that's
few
weird.
months after or something.
Yeah. There have been games where I've gone on and it has popped as well. But
Yeah,
anyway.
I think I
I
had a
haven't.
Mass Effect one do that once.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
I
it's like
can't.
3 or 4 months later, just randomly out of the blue.
Jesus. Mass Effect 1.
It's probably either 2 or 3 actually.
To be honest, Jay, thinking about it, I haven't got that many more questions about this game. I feel like we kind of know what it is. We know about your experience with it, and I think we just kind of keep an eye on how you're finding it. Really,
Yeah,
what
I
do you
mean,
think?
we're not gonna hear anything about DLC. I don't think until I think it's supposed to be either end of September or end of October. I'm not entirely sure which one it was. So I'll let you know when that comes out, and then we can probably do a special maybe a week or two after that. It's probably the next possible time to do one.
I say we wait till a few characters are out.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, yeah. I think we can do an update on the show,
Oh yeah, that's
especially
what I meant. That's what I meant. Yeah,
when the first or second character come out. Absolutely, see what it's like.
just a quick 10-minute update or a 5-minute
Yeah,
update or whatever.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And see what it's like. But apart from that, I think we leave it until a lot's been added or whatever.
Maybe like 5 or 6 characters, depending on
Yeah, depending on
maybe
how
even like a year later, like year one or something,
something like
or
that.
6 months or something.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Any idea, Jay, on whether it will sustain a player base?
So I just now checked the Steam charts, um, and it's sitting at about 9,000 on average at the minute.
That's pretty good.
Its all-time peak was only 30,000 though, so not a lot of people are playing it on PC. I reckon a lot more people are playing it on console. I'd say.
Yeah, me too.
Apparently, there's about 500,000 players on console.
Do you
I don't
think
know
it
if that's
has
true or not.
or will sold well?
I'm actually want to check that really quick.
Or
I
sell
don't
well?
know. I don't know if they've let out the sales numbers yet.
I don't know either.
I think it's supposed to be monthly, isn't it, rather than anything else. So apparently, Marvel Avengers top sales chart, but still eclipsed by Spider-Man PS4. Obviously, wasn't Spider-Man PS4 one of the best-selling PlayStation games or something?
Yeah, of all
Like during
time.
its first weekend, it like sold so many millions that it was just kind of just like disgusting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it doesn't say specifically, which is annoying. Let's have a look. Oh, hello. Okay. Okay, this is random. It's the best-selling retail game in its first week in the UK. So it was basically number one
This
at least
year?
for a week in the UK. Yeah, I think it's the
Right.
best-selling game in the UK this year. Which honestly isn't asking for a lot, considering that we've had the lockdown or whatever.
Yeah.
Apparently, it's only sold 43,000 copies, physical copies in Japan.
That's not a lot.
So
I can't see Japan picking up a game like that, though, really.
I mean, 43,000 for Japan isn't bad, actually. It's not a lot, but it's not bad. Yeah, I reckon we'll hear more about that shortly, maybe after a month or two. I'm very curious, actually, how many people bought this. Very curious.
And I assume if the player base does drop off rapidly, it won't really change or affect your play style and your continuation of playing this game.
No, yeah, I'll do dailies. I mean, I have mobile games that I do every day, so just doing, the consistency of that. I'm actually kind of like maybe a little bit confused because I'm pretty sure they showed the Spider-Man sales and the Last of Us 2 sales in the first week after it coming out.
They were exclusives to PlayStation, though, weren't they?
Yeah, but even so, like you would imagine that if a game was doing well, they would show you the sales numbers sooner rather than later. But it looks to me like they're going to wait a little bit.
Okay.
Because they might not have gotten as good of a sale. I mean, we said For Honor has lasted 6 years on a 6,000 average player base on PC, and on PC this has a 9,000 average player base. So it's definitely going to last. As long as it stays at these numbers, it'll probably last at least a year.
But that is the question, isn't it? Will it stay at those numbers?
I mean, from what I can see, it looks like it's definitely going down. They averaged 28,000 players on release, and then ever since then it's been going about down 1,000 maybe every couple of days.
Right.
And it's now stuck at around 9,000. So.
Right.
So from 28 to 9,000, so it's lost 21,000 average players over the last 2 weeks, just on PC.
And I think part of that impact is the fact that the next gen's around the corner. People might be waiting and stuff
That's
like
definitely
that.
true. Definitely true. Yeah, there could be a few people who are like, well, I'll play it when it's actually like on the next gen.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's definitely some development to be had here.
What do you think Crystal Dynamics does from this, Jay?
Tell you what, Crystal Dynamics have actually impressed me with how much they've been talking to the audience about patches and stuff. They've been so on it with like responding back to criticisms. Like the official forum is like on the Reddit at least is like insanely like good. Like it's probably one of the best ones I've seen in like a long time. So I actually haven't looked at the Reddit in a while. Wonder, yeah, I kind of want to like look at the discussion for the latest patch, but I might talk about this more, in a later update or something.
Yeah, sure.
There's still so much to find out. We don't necessarily know. I definitely think there's still bugs, but whether or not they'll. They did say they've got a lot of bugs they can't fix at the minute, but they're still trying to. So. Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there eventually.
That's pretty much it from me.
Yeah.
On Avengers.
Yeah.
Anything you would like to add? Or get off your chest, as this is a gaming therapy session.
Yeah, I guess so. No, I think we've pretty much hit it all. I'm trying to think if there was anything. No, just
I can tell you now, Jay, this Angry Joe review is going to be off the charts.
yeah, more than likely.
Yeah. 4 hours.
Oh well,
Yeah.
someone's platinum this game. Just looked at
Oh yeah, you've avoided my questions
which one?
twofold.
Which one?
Trophy list. What's it like?
Oh yeah, yeah, it's definitely doable.
It sounds like a grind. It sounds like a
Yeah,
grind.
I've done 76% without really trying.
How? What's the other percentage?
24% left. It's primarily doing things on hard difficulties, and it's pretty hard doing that without a group. So you
Okay.
kind of just need a group to be able to do the last lot, really.
Okay. And what are the collectibles like? Are they collectibles?
Yeah, I've pretty much got them all, apart from maybe like 10 or so.
Okay.
Because they're not in like any specific place. They're actually I think the ones in the campaign are in specific places, but when you're playing multiplayer, you can just find ones random that you don't have, which I think is actually quite a smart thing. Because if you haven't found them elsewhere, they just sort of randomly pop up by chance. So you can essentially collect every single collectible without really trying. So I've pretty much got the majority of them because the collectibles are primarily just like lore. Um, they're basically like notes or letters or audio recordings from characters, and then the other collectibles are primarily comic books, which actually do affect your stats in game. And I've so the way the comic book system works is you collect a certain number of, or like say you get one of each of the ones you can collect. When you get duplicates, that then adds up, and it basically makes your stats like progressively better. So let's say I have like 10 of a Thor number 3, I now have 1% more crit chance. Whereas if I only had 5, I'd had 0.5. So for every time I go up a tier, from like tier 1 to 2 to 3 and so on, I then get 0.5 extra on my crit chance. But to go
Okay.
from tier 2 to 3, you have to then get another 10. So 5 initially, then 10, then 20, then 30, then so on. So it
Okay.
becomes progressively harder to get more and more tiers. But I think I'm on like tier 2 with most of them now, because you find comic books in like most chests, but I think they've actually made it harder to find them. As like a bit of a tweak they didn't really tell you about. So I guess
Okay.
that's like my other thing I can tell you about.
And Crystal Dynamics, what do you think they're doing moving forward? Do you think they'll return to Tomb Raider? Do you think they will do Avengers 2? What do you think they're going to do?
They're going to stay on this for as long as they can because they know there's still
Mm.
money to be made.
Do you think they might develop another Marvel character game?
No, not anytime
Okay.
soon. Definitely
Okay.
not in the next 5 years.
Do you know what might be an interesting proposition, Jay?
Go on then.
They've started with Avengers. They can keep doing that, that's fine. But you release a 30 quid Iron Man game. So like a double A Iron Man game. It's like
Uh,
4 to 6 hours, but it's really good. A bit like Hellblade in that sense. And then you do that for every character. That'd be cool.
yeah,
Release them every
okay,
year, something like that. You know what I mean? Like
sure.
I'm just putting ideas out there.
Yeah, yeah, I
Like I
see it.
don't think they've got the resources to make every single one of those a AAA game, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, yeah,
Yeah. All right.
I see it.
Well, thanks, Jay, for your thoughts, opinions, judgment.
Still more
We
to
will.
come.
Yeah,
Tons more to
we'll keep
come.
an eye on it. We'll keep an eye on it. All right. Avengers out.